You're listening to The Fully Booked Therapist with Heather Hammel. This is the business coaching show for hands-on therapists who are done under-earning and ready to build a practice that pays them more than enough. Real conversations, real results, your real life. Let's get into it. Welcome back to the Fully Booked Therapist podcast. I'm your host, Heather Hammel. If you caught last week's episode, you heard me introduce the 12 core standards of the Fully Booked Therapist. Today, we're going deep on the very first one. Standard 1. They are honest and vulnerable. And I want to start off with a story. Every time I've hired a coach, it has felt like the most vulnerable thing that I could do. And I don't mean vulnerable in a soft, abstract way. I mean in a very real, very uncomfortable way where your stomach does that thing and your brain starts running through all of the worst case scenarios. What if I spend the money and I don't get what I need? What if I say something dumb? What if I don't even know how to ask for the help that I need? What if I show up and everyone else has it together and I'm the only one who clearly doesn't? I think a lot of us walk into coaching or avoid coaching altogether because we're carrying this belief that we should already have it figured out, that asking for help is a sign that something is wrong with us, that a good therapist, a smart business owner, a capable adult should have this all sorted out, that we should be able to do this on our own. And I get it, because therapists, especially us, we are the helpers. We are the ones who people come to with their hard stuff. Flipping that and being the one who needs help, who doesn't have the answer, who has to sit in someone else's coaching chair, that's uncomfortable in a very specific way. But here's what I know after years of hiring coaches and doing this work myself. Every single time that I have taken the chance and worked on my own development, I have won every time. I have either felt better, been more calm, been able to grow faster, made more money, or all of those things all at the same time. The only time I've lost money, and I mean truly walked away with less than I came in with, is when I thought paying for coaching would hand me the result without me having to do anything. Or when I felt so uncertain and so exposed that I didn't allow myself to actually show up. I paid and then I hid. I sat in the back. I didn't ask the real questions. I brought the polished version of myself instead of the true one. And because I wasn't honest about what was actually happening, I couldn't get the help with what was actually happening. And that is a cost of not being honest and vulnerable, not just emotionally, financially, but in real dollars. And that's why this is standard number 1. So let's talk about what honesty and vulnerability actually look like as a standard, because I think those words get used in ways that make them feel bigger and scarier than they need to be. Being honest and vulnerable does not mean that you have to fall apart on a coaching call or share every fear that you've ever had. It does not mean performing emotion or being dramatic about your struggles. It means telling the truth about what is actually happening. It means when someone asks how things are going and things are not going well, you say that. It means when you tried something and it didn't work, you say that instead of going quiet or disappearing or blaming it on somebody else. It means you don't understand something, you ask instead of nodding along and hoping that no one notices or thinking that you're going to disappoint the coach, so you just agree to whatever they say. It means you bring what is real, not what is presentable. I see this come up in a few very specific ways in my programs, and I want to name them because I think you might recognize yourself in at least one of them. The first is what I call the highlight reel problem. Someone shows up to a coaching call or posts in the community, and they only ever share wins. The good sessions, the rebooks, the clients who left a glowing review. And those things are totally worth celebrating, and I love it. But if that is all you ever bring, then the coaching can only meet you at the surface. The real work, the pricing conversations you're avoiding, the client you're not sure how to handle, the month that has been slower than you want to admit, that stuff stays hidden, and hidden problems don't get solved. The second is what I call performing confidence. This is when you know something isn't working, but you're not ready to say it out loud because saying out loud would make it real. So you keep showing up like everything is fine. You keep doing what you've been doing. You don't raise your hand and say, I'm stuck. And the weeks just keep ticking by. And the third, which is one I talked about in my own story, is paying and hiding, coming into a program or a container and then not actually using it, not asking questions, not bringing your real problems, sitting in the back and hoping the transformation will happen by proximity. Or worse, maybe you pay for the program and then you never log into the portal and you never come to a call and you never listen to a replay. And then you sit there really upset that no change has actually happened. None of these are failures of your character. They're really just fear, and it's a protection. It's a very human response to the possibility of feeling exposed. But these are the things that keep you exactly where you are. I put honesty and vulnerability first because everything else depends on it. So think about the other standards. We've got self-coaching, getting coached, evaluating your business, knowing your numbers, holding your policies. All of it requires you to be honest about what is actually happening. You cannot self-coach if you are not honest with yourself about your own thoughts and where they are taking you. And many times I see people avoid self-coaching because they don't want to see or feel anything negative. You cannot get coached if you are not willing to be vulnerable enough to bring the real stuff. You cannot evaluate your business if you're not willing to look at numbers that might not be great. You cannot hold a policy if you are not honest about why you keep breaking it. Honesty is the beginning, it's the entry point. Without it, the 11 other standards are just concepts that maybe you agree with intellectually, but you can't actually use. Here's what I want you to hear. Being honest and vulnerable isn't a soft skill. It is not a nice to have. It is the most practical, most results producing thing that you can do as you build your practice. The truth is you're not going to get more fully booked by pretending that you have it together. You're going to get fully booked by figuring out what is actually in the way and solving for it. And you cannot solve what you are not willing to see. What does this look like in the treatment room? I want to bring up and bring this into the treatment room because this standard is not just about how you show up in coaching, it's about how you show up with your clients too. A fully booked therapist who is honest and vulnerable with themselves is going to be a better hands-on therapist, full stop. When you're willing to sit with not knowing, when you're willing to say to yourself, I'm not sure what this client needs right now, and I'm going to stay curious instead of rushing to fix it, you're practicing the same skill. When you are honest about the edges of your scope of practice and you refer out without shame, you are practicing this standard. When you do not let your own need to feel competent or right drive the sessions, you are practicing this. Honesty in the treatment room also sounds like this. I can help you. And I want you to make sure you are saying that out loud to each and every client and with conviction. That might not sound like vulnerability, but it is. Because saying I can help you is a commitment. It puts you on the line. And fully booked therapists are willing to be on the line for their clients. Fully booked therapists are willing to be on the line for their clients. I just love that statement. I want to come back to where I started because I think it's worth sitting with just a little bit longer. Asking for help can feel like the most vulnerable thing, especially for us hands-on therapists, especially for people who are smart and capable and used to being the one with answers, used to being the one that figures it out, used to being the people that help other people. But the willingness to ask for help, to raise your hand and say, you know what, I don't have this figured out yet and I want support. That is not weakness. That is actually one of the most sophisticated things a person can do. It requires self-awareness. It requires honesty. It requires you to care more about the result than about looking like you already know how to get there. Every therapist I have ever coached who built a fully booked practice got there partly because they were willing to ask for help. They were willing to say out loud what was hard. They were willing to bring their real questions, not just ones that made them look smart. They were willing to be in the room as themselves, not as the version of themselves they thought they were supposed to be. And every therapist I have seen stay stuck, they didn't lack talent. They didn't lack drive. They lacked the willingness to be honest about what was actually in the way. So if you're sitting with something right now, a question that you have not asked, a problem that you have not named, a thing that is not working that you have not admitted yet, I want to invite you to name it, even just to yourself. Start there. That's where it begins, and that's where you unlock the ability to solve a problem. Standard one, a fully booked therapist is honest and vulnerable, not because it's comfortable and not because it's easy, but because it's the thing that makes everything else possible. Next time, we're going to talk about standard two. Fully booked therapists are willing to fail. And I think you're going to see how directly it connects with what we talk about today. Because honesty and vulnerability and a willingness to fail, they're like cousins. They live right next to each other. If you're ready to do this work inside a real container with real coaching, come find me at heatherhammel.com. Join Foundations, where we take standards off the page and build them into your actual practice. Thanks for being here today, where we talk about real conversations, real results, and your real life. I'll see you next week. Thanks for spending this time with me today. If you're a hands-on therapist who is ready to get fully booked and build a practice that actually pays you, I want to help you do that. Head over to heatherhammel.com to find out how we can work together. And if you loved this episode, please share it with someone who needs it. See you next week.